Welcome into 5 Clubs on a Tuesday right here on Golf Channel. You can also listen on the PGA Tour Radio Network on SiriusXM's Channel 92. I am Gary Williams. Great to have you with us. This program is always brought to you by Century Insurance. Right by you, their relationships with the United States Golf Association, with the First Tee, and of course that first event of the calendar year on the PGA Tour, a reflection of them investing in the game of golf in the best ways. Golf Pride, one of our 3 North Carolina-based companies that we trust and they trust us with respect to grips. All players at every level trust Golf Pride more than any other. Peter Millar, when it comes to performance and style and luxury, the apparel provider for me for the last 15 years. And of course, Pinehurst, an anchor site for USGA championships and the cradle of American golf. We appreciate their support. There's always a good time to be at Pinehurst. We are going to be joined today by Ward Clayton, who wrote a wonderful book about the legendary caddies of Augusta National, because it is that time of the year. We will have steak for breakfast, Wagyu filet. Brendon de Jonge and Johnson Wagner are going to be joining me for the last half hour of the program. And Steve Burkowski in just a couple of minutes. He is an expert on amateur golf, on collegiate golf, and he is in Augusta, Georgia for what has become golf's fortnight. We associate that term with tennis, but golf has it now with what Augusta National has done. And before I get to Burko, just a little brief history lesson, because there's a term, the best laid plans. What does that exactly mean? It means that whatever plans you might have had, they might change. They might change because you need to. They might change because of ambition. They might change because of vision. If you consider Augusta National, the time in which it was created, right in the middle of what was one of the most challenging times in the history of this country, after the Depression, kind of right still in the middle of it to some degree, trying to conjure up thought and interest about joining a club for what at the time was $350 for an initiation fee to Augusta National, $60 annually for dues. And you're going, really? Yeah, really. And they struggled. And they were trying in all different ways to gain interest for their project, their property in this mill town of Augusta, Georgia. They appealed to the United States Golf Association to possibly host the U.S. Open there in 1934. That didn't happen, so they started their own tournament, the Augusta National Invitation. They even hosted the Senior PGA in 1937. In 1938, won by Jock Hutchinson and Fred McLeod. And for years, people went, why are those guys honorary starters? Well, because they won a tournament there. There was the Senior PGA Championship. And along came in the 50s the Champions Dinner that was at the behest of Ben Hogan. And the par 3 contest. See where I'm going here? Change, evolution, just having a vision. What can we do next? And then after that, you get to really 1996 and before that, because it started in the early 90s, because Atlanta was going to have the Olympics. And it almost happened that golf was almost contested at Augusta National in 1996. It didn't happen, but it got close. And then they created the Asian Pacific Amateur Championship in 2009. Their second champion was Hideki Matsuyama in 2010. And oh, by the way, he was the low amateur, which kind of legitimized that event. 10 years later, he won the Masters tournament. And then they created the Latin America Amateur Championship in 2015. And right before that, in 2014, the Drive, Chip, and Putt. And still more to come. 2019, the Augusta National Women's Amateur. And so what was always, at least it felt like in my lifetime, golf's global renewal, the thoughts of playing yourself and watching the Masters tournament has become a festival of golf for men, for women, and for kids. It's really amazing. It's quite a journey. And I have a feeling that, who knows, 10, 20, 50 years from now, there's going to be something else. But for now, we focus on what does exist and what's going on this week, and that is the Augusta National Women's Amateur. And as I mentioned at the top of the program, when I have a question or a query about something related to amateur golf or collegiate golf, there's one person I think of first, and that is Steve Burkowski, a bellwether voice for Golf Channel for more than 2 decades. He joins me now from Augusta, Georgia. Burko, my friend, good morning. How are you?
To be aboard. Appreciate the invite, and you got me excited to giving me that little history tour of everything here at Augusta for the last 90 years.
It's been quite a journey. Again, modest ambition to begin with and bold vision to this present day. Let me start with just your overall feelings about when this was created. 2019, they couldn't have jumped off in a more scintillating way because they get these virtuoso performances from Jennifer Kupcho and Maria Fassi. Kupcho shoots 67 at Augusta National, hitting phenomenal shots coming down the stretch, and she wins the first one. This is uncommon. You have two golf courses. You have a respite before the final round where all the participants after the cut can play a practice round at Augusta National, and then the stage is set. What did you think when they created this, and what do you think now?
I remember that conversation when the news first broke shortly before that very first event in 2019, and the excitement, the anticipation of what this could be. And you just touched on the fact to have Kupcho and Fassi coming down that second nine in the very first playing of the Augusta National Women's Amateur. The theater was dramatic. The golf was scintillating, and the sportsmanship and camaraderie between those two, I think it set a standard and a bar that was extremely high to continue to grow and catapult off of that. And that's exactly what they've done. And we would know that by now, right? Anytime Augusta National Golf Club has an initiative, gets involved, tries to grow the game, open the doors, you know it's going to be done properly. And the schedule, a little bit different. A couple of rounds at Champions Retreat on Wednesday and Thursday, then that respite you talked about on Friday, where all the invitees get to play Augusta National, whether they're in that final round on Saturday or just to say, you know what, I had the experience, maybe a little bit of motivation to try to make the cut the following year. So every little detail is spot on. No stone unturned. There's an understanding that you want to display the very best in women's amateur golf. But again, the big picture, the narrative that has been Augusta National Golf Club for so long and what this game has meant to so many. When they talked about it 7 years ago, it was the anticipation. It has been an absolute grand slam for folks like me who cover it, like you who cover it and watch it. And for the young women to get that invitation, like a Scottie Scheffler or Rory McIlroy, they do it the right way, Gary. And I think I get goosebumps just talking about it to know we're on the cusp of another great edition here this week.
I don't know if it's, unusual to have multiple past champions in an amateur field because we talk about, and you have to talk about this all the time, players leaving college golf and ascending to the professional game. So to have multiple past champions in this field, it's great. So let's start right there as you look at these young women who are in this field and you handicap their chances. Who do you think among the three in this field who have won there has the best chance?
Well, you think about Tsubasa Kajitani, Anna Davis, Lottie Woad, Lottie winning in dramatic style a year ago. She's the top-ranked amateur in the world, so I think it's very easy to say Lottie would have an exceptional chance to go back-to-back. She has not missed a beat, Gary, in her final season at Florida State. Top 3 finishes or better the entire season. Then Anna Davis at Auburn. She's been trending in the right direction. She closed recently with 64 at Colonial in a women's college event where many said it was the best collegiate round of golf they've ever seen played. And then Tsubasa Kajitani, a bit of a different path. She went to Seminole State, a junior college in Florida. Things didn't quite materialize. According to her coach, she's back home in Japan. She works a regular job. She's dealt with some off-the-course issues, as so many young individuals do when they're trying to find their way. So 3 very different dynamic players and paths to get here. I think you could give a coin toss the way Anna Davis has been trending and what Lottie Woad has done. You think about those birdies on those 3 of the final 4 holes a year ago to overtake Bailey Shoemaker. I could see Davis and Woad squarely in the mix come Saturday afternoon.
We have somebody in asterisk tally who's 15 years of age. And we have seen 15-year-old young women who have done extraordinary things over the last 20 years. Give me an assessment when you compare her to other prodigies who might have been at different stages. Some of them already had professional ambition, played some professional events, some more than others. Give me an assessment of her as it relates to others you've seen over the last couple of decades.
Gary, that's a great question, because as soon as you described asterisk tally, it made me think about Michelle Wie some 15, 18, 20 years ago. I still have the vision of watching her hit a golf ball for the first time as a teenager and said, I'm not sure there's another female on the planet, all due respect to the rest, that can hit those kind of shots. I'm not saying Tally is Michelle Wie, but the accomplishments, the growth, the maturity. Asterisk Tally did something, Gary, no one has ever done in the history of USGA championships. She played in 3 championship finals in a calendar year. She only lost twice in match play. She won the 4-ball and made it all the way to the finals of the junior and the U.S. women's amateur. I spoke with her a year ago at this championship, and you got the sense she was getting comfortable in her own skin. She can just absolutely send it. Her wedges are usually dialed in. And the name itself, asterisk tally, Gary, you're drawn in by that. And it is derived from Greek language. Little star is what asterisk means. And let me tell you, Tally is going to be a big star. She just has that certain presence, if you will, when she walks on a range, and what might be in her path, whether it's college golf, I don't know. But what she did in 2024 in those USGA championships, that is a standard. Again, I got to reiterate, it had never been done before, man or woman, what she accomplished a year ago.
Burko, playing Augusta National is, even if you're doing it in anonymity, if there's nobody around, it's weighty to play a couple of rounds of a competition, then take a day off, have the practice round at Augusta National, and then go onto that stage with an audience that is captive and it's large. Give me a couple of players you think are most well equipped to handle that, because there's a lot of gravity to it.
Oh, there is indeed. And I go back to that first year when we talked about what could be in 2019 with Kupcho and Fossey. And when the gates opened and the patrons filed in and we looked around and we saw thousands upon thousands upon thousands, that's when it hit me. And that's just as somebody looking from the outside in. So as talented as these young women are, you kind of hit it on the head. They're going to get to Augusta National Saturday, hopefully with the tee time, and be like, oh my goodness, they're all out here to see us. So to your original question, I would go to the position of someone that's been there before, that might not be awestruck. You know, you can easily say Lottie Woad, Anna Davis, they understand the experience. I'm going to give you Lottie Woad's teammate, Mirabelle Ting, who played in this event a year ago, made it to Saturday, had a tee time in that final round. She's played 6 college events this year at Florida State, Gary. She's won 5 of them. 5 out of 6. We're now getting into that Rose-Zhang, Lorena Ochoa territory of both players that won 8 of 10 respectively in their sophomore years in college. Ting didn't play in 2 events at the end of the fall. She was back home playing in a couple of professional events. I think Mirabelle Ting is trending in a great direction to be, you know what? Everyone talks about Lottie, and we love Lottie Woad if you're at Florida State. Mirabelle Ting can absolutely play. And then maybe a bit of a wild card, only because I'm not sure of her health. Rhianne Maliksi, a young lady who's committed to Duke in the fall. She withdrew from the Asia Pacific Amateur just a few weeks ago after 5 holes. We'll see if the body's 100% healthy. If she is, keep an eye on her. She's played in this tournament before. And by the way, when I said Asterisk Tally only lost in 2 championship matches last summer, well, you know who beat her? Not once, but twice, Rhianne Maliksi. It was a rematch at the girls' junior, then the women's amateur. If 100% healthy, I believe Rhianne Maliksi completely equipped to handle the moment over the next few days.
Burko, thank you for starting your day with us. Nobody more equipped to give us a scene set for a special event in women's amateur golf. Thanks so much. I look forward to seeing you down there.
Gary, always a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, there's Steve Burkowski, Golf Channel, of course, coverage on Golf Channel, and then this weekend on NBC, final round of the Augusta National Women's Amateur. When we continue, Ward Clayton is somebody who, if you watch the documentary Loopers, he was one of the key voices in that. It was a wonderful documentary on caddies and the history of caddies. How about the history of caddies at Augusta National? He's written a book about it. My conversation with him is coming up next, and a little bit later on, Wagner Brendon, Brendon de Jonge, Johnson Wagner with me last half hour of the program. It is a Tuesday edition of 5 Clubs here on Golf Channel and on the PGA Tour Radio Network, channel 92 on Sirius XM. Back with you right after this. Everybody knows I love the written word, and it's nice to open up the book club here on this Tuesday and welcome in somebody who's written about a subject that I absolutely love. And this segment is being brought to you by Golf Pride. Players at every level trust Golf Pride more than any grip. And I remember when I was listening to this man's voice for the first time, talking about this subject matter, a little bit different subject, but the same overall premise, and that is Ward Clayton, who's written a terrific book called The Legendary Caddies of Augusta National, Masters Week next week, and he joins me now. Ward, it's good to see you. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. Hope you're doing well too. We're in the middle of basketball season, but golf season's upon us too, right?
It's the great convergence of, Final Four into Masters Week has always been the great rite of spring. But I mentioned your voice. Ward, I was flying home from all places, Scotland, and I watched Loopers, a terrific documentary, which you were a central figure in that, giving people context on a lot of things. On that flight home, I watched it 3 times because I wanted to hear the stories again. I wanted to see. It was beautifully shot as well. But anyway, it's good to have you on. Let's talk about this book because the inspiration for this book for you came in 1999. I want you to share with the audience what that was, the impetus for you saying, you know what, I think I want to write about this subject. What was it?
Gary, when I was at the Augusta Chronicle newspaper, we did deep dives into history of the Masters, and occasionally we'd run into the names of the caddies, but it was generally just by their nicknames. So therefore, the question came to me is, what's this person's real name? What's his background, so forth. So this leads to the time you're talking about, 1999, when we got a call at the Augusta Chronicle newspaper from Willie Peterson's daughter, and she said that Willie had died in New York. Willie's Jack Nicklaus's caddy for 5 of his 6 Masters. And that led the deep dive into Ancestry.com to try to find out how many of these guys are still alive, family members, friends, etc., like that. So Willie Peterson set that off, much like he set Jack off to win 5 times at Augusta.
Ward, one of the things I know that when you started to research this book and you're trying to learn, which was not, I'm sure, easy, because like you said, some of the information, particularly posthumously, to learn about, how they were remembered. The one thing I was particularly struck by is that these men were not necessarily just products of Augusta, Georgia. Their families, they themselves had experiences on this land. But before the golf course was constructed, give people just a few of those particular individuals about how swimming in Rays Creek and finding little alligators that they would then, donate. Just the fact that they're not just from Augusta. The land meant something to them personally.
Gary, 2 years ago, we took Carl Jackson when the 13th hole was extended, the tee box was extended back to the 13th tee, and he started telling the story about being able to walk from his neighborhood, Sandhills, which is adjacent to Augusta Country Club and Augusta National, and be able to walk down the periphery of a couple of those holes. And then he said, when we would come through a hole in the fence behind the 13th tee, and that's how we got to this property. We would swim in Rays Creek right there at Nelson Bridge. We'd fish in Rays Creek. We'd build a fire on the edge of Rays Creek and cook the fish. So it was like it was neighborhood kids, whether they're in Augusta, Georgia, or the Bronx or whatever. if they're at Yankee Stadium, they want to work at Yankee Stadium. These guys knew that land like the back of their hand just from being there, not even on the golf course. And you could even take it back to a gentleman named Pappy Stokes, who's sort of the godfather of all these caddies. Pappy grew up on the property of Augusta National before it was Augusta National. At age 12 in the early 1930s, he was, quote, the water boy for the workers who were clearing the land for Augusta National. And the way he learned to read the greens, and this is really quite fascinating, was he'd watch it rain, and he'd watch the rain flow from the upper levels of Augusta National, right where the 9th, 18th greens are, and watch it flow down toward Race Creek. And that's how he learned how to read the greens. And that secret still exists today. In the caddy shack at Augusta National, there are drawings of each green with a red dot on it. And I guarantee you each caddy will go in there in his yardage book and he'll denote where that red dot is, because that's the direction of Race Creek from each particular green. Sometimes you lose your bearings when you're out there on the course and can't figure out where that is. But if you got it in your yardage book, you'll know where it is.
Was there one particular individual who caddied at Augusta National that you were particularly captivated by his story? Because all of them, each of these chapters devoted to their time there, their history with these great historic players. Was there one that rose above any other?
I don't know if he rose above anybody, but his wisdom, particularly talking to me, was particularly insightful, was Jariah Beard. Jariah caddied for Fuzzy Zeller in 1979. Fuzzy's still the last guy to win as a rookie in the Masters. So Jariah was particularly honest about how they worked at Augusta National, how he had a job that he worked overnight. He would get off his night shift at a local plant and come to Augusta National for 8 o'clock in the morning and then caddy. In his later years, he kept track of all the caddies, where they were, what they were doing. He was sort of the historian for the caddies. Unfortunately, he died 2 years ago. And so, some of that is lost, but hopefully I was able to pick his brain enough to get some of this information so it will carry forward. And by the way, you mentioned Carl. March 31st, which was Monday, it was his 78th birthday. So Carl's still going strong.
Let me ask you about the caddy yard there, because one of the interesting nuggets that I found in this book is that in the early days, Augusta National caddies would hand their drivers to the members to tee off on the next hole, and they would stay back and putt on the previous green. And I'm thinking to myself, my God, if Clifford Roberts knew this. No, Clifford Roberts totally approved of that practice. Tell people about that.
I think a couple of members may have been offended that the caddy would take the putter out of the bag and start putting on the previous green. But the member told Cliff Roberts about this incident. Cliff Roberts' response was immediately says, how the hell do you think they're going to learn how to read the greens unless they putt them? So therefore, I think that shows some of the institutional knowledge these guys had at Augusta National and how they were going to give some great advice to you, whether it was yardage, whether it was reading greens. And in particular, Gary, the thing that always strikes me is these guys could read you immediately when you were on the first tee. They could realize if you're really a nervous Nelly and how to tell you a joke and make you calm down, or vice versa. If you were really pretty cocky, how to break you down so you'd understand that you really had to focus on what you were doing.
1983, Ward, was a significant date because it was the year in which players were permitted to bring their own caddy. I think it changed a lot in the industry. It wasn't just there. I think it had an enormous impact on other things. How much did it change the lure of that caddy yard? That the fact is that those men who knew that week were going to be entrusted to guide their player, that the diminishing number of men who were given that opportunity now, to where maybe some women in the Augusta National Women's Amateur might employ a local caddy. But how significant was 83 in the grand big picture?
Oh, I think he was tremendously significant. It changed the character of the caddy corps at Augusta National, because not as many of them worked at the Masters. So therefore, some of them who were probably in line to work there probably went and found other work because they weren't going to get their, quote, big payday from the Masters. The black community in Augusta really celebrated around the caddies who won the tournament or did quite well. It was, the Sandhills community really had quite the time there. So I think it changed it significantly. I think that was going to happen pretty soon, Gary, because, the money in golf had gone up so high, and therefore the percentage caddies were going to went with it. So that was going to happen because, professionals want their guy working for them year round. They don't want to just go a one-off at the Masters. So that was going to happen. I just wish there'd have been a little bit more of a buffer where, maybe if you're a first-time player or you're an amateur or something like that, they would have strongly suggested that you get an Augusta National caddy.
There's still a connection from the past to the present, and appropriately, it's Jordan Spieth and Michael Greller with Ben Crenshaw, two Texas guys, and Michael Greller has leaned on Carl Jackson to learn that land. And I don't know if it will be one of the last links, but that to me, Ward, it's romantic, but it's also powerful.
Oh, I agree. You can take that a step further. Ben's also told Carl to talk to Ted Scott and Scotty Scheffler in the last 3 years.
Yep.
Carl's given them some insight. So that's been particularly valuable. So, Teddy's won 4 times at Augusta, twice with Bubba, twice with Scotty Scheffler. Not only does he get insight from Carl, but there's a gentleman named Steve Kling, who's one of the caddies at Augusta National, who helps out the players when they come in before the tournament. And Ted gets some insight from him. Scotty gets insight from Steve also. And Ted even stays with him during the Masters. So he gets a little bit more wisdom than anybody else, it seems like. Well,
anytime you see the vintage footage, whether it be, 60s, 70s, and most notably the putt that Jack made up the hill on 16 and Willie Peterson, his exuberance, that image, those things will live forever. Again, the book, it's The Legendary Caddies of Augusta National. I thoroughly enjoyed it, highly recommended. It is a thread to this club and to this tournament that if you love the tournament, you're fascinated by the golf club, I highly recommend you read it. Ward, thank you for taking the time.
Gary, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. We'll be eating pimento cheese sandwiches before you know it.
I know, absolutely right. There's Ward Clayton, the author of that wonderful book. We continue here on this Tuesday, right here on 5 Clubs, right after this. Welcome back in on this Tuesday. Great to have you with us. Steak for breakfast, Brendon de Jonge, Johnson Wagner. This segment is brought to you by Peter Millar. I do my best to wear it as well as I can. Nobody wears it better than these two. They're always laughing. They had their radio show last night on the PGA Tour Radio Network. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning, Gary. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's great to see you. You've got a very big competition. We'll talk about Minwoo Lee. We'll talk about the Masters, the Rusty Nail, a monstrous competition for only the best of the best.
And it's for the kids. It's for the first. It's for the first tee of Greater Charlotte. This is the 3rd installment. We've raised over $100,000 each year.
It's awesome.
It's really good. But we also get to have a really fun time down at Ohoopee Match Club, which is instantly becoming one of my favorite spots to go.
Kids playing for kids.
Exactly.
It's a great concept.
With a cool trophy.
It's one of the best trophies. Maybe we get a picture of the trophy afterwards and we can share it with everybody.
If I'm holding it, I will take a picture and bring it out.
All right, very good. All right, let's start with Minwoo Lee because we've got a lot we're going to try to get to here. You were in Houston for PGA Tour Live, walking the golf course. He's got assets, and they're dynamic assets. So let's balance the assets with the deficiencies. What is the Minwoo Lee ceiling? Not right now, just what has he got that you love? What does he have that he has to work on?
Well, the obvious thing you love is the speed. I mean, it's speed to burn. It's unbelievable how hard this guy hits it. It's raw. I would say it needs to be refined a little bit. I mean, perfect evidence was on 16 on Sunday. Just hit that ball in the fairway. That hole was playing so easy. hit a 2-iron and a 7-iron into that green. You know, you hit it so far, you hit driver, hit into the miles, into the water. Just needs to refine things. The short game is unbelievable. He's got so many good shots around the green, so many different shots around the greens. A lot to love there. But yeah, as far as a deficiency, I just think it all needs to be refined.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the main deficiency is his iron play. And last year, I would say it was his putting as well. He was 118th in strokes gained putting last year. He's shown the ability to improve that. He's 8th currently in strokes gained on the greens this year. So being able to make that jump tells me a lot. And I honestly, he's got the kind of speed that he can go win a major championship.
Yeah,
if he can get the driver figured out and hit the irons good enough, I have no doubt that Min Woo Lee has the talent to win a major at some point in his career.
So, but specifically the iron play, can guys who are outside the top 100 in strokes gained approach win a major championship?
He's not going to win one this year. I think that's
but that's got to improve markedly.
It has to improve. You just look at a place like Augusta National. He's got the tools off the tee to bring that place to its knees. But if he's not hitting the ball into the right spots on those greens that require so much precision, no, he's got no chance. But that is something that he can work on and get better over the years.
And the thing with him is, we want to pigeonhole him into golf courses like Memorial Park, where it's a big ballpark. But then you look at what he's done at the Players, where he's contended twice.
Yeah.
So this guy's got he's got something about him.
He does, and I also think, I'm sure it didn't feel particularly comfortable the last couple of holes, but I said this yesterday, he hadn't won before, whether you've not won or won 10 times. The lead's nice, but it also does something to you, whether it makes you defensive or protective of something, and then you maybe depart from how you got that lead to begin with. Losing that lead might be the best thing, because he had to knuckle down, and he's got not just anybody, he's got world number 1 in front of him. He's got roars all over the place because the golf course was giving it up. Gary Woodland was going low. Rory was kind of teasing everybody. And he did what he had to do, including on the 18th hole. Dr. Chapinski was not doing a house call. He did the Texas wedge on 18, appropriately so. It's an impressive win.
The lag putt from the back of 18, I mean, it was like Phil when he won the PGA at Baltusrol, when Phil chipped it up there to this and was celebrating before he even got up there. And it was incredible for him to be able to go mark it. And then the show with the aim point and the picture of Scotty Scheffler watching from the scoring trailer, just absolutely losing it over Min Woo, just being Min Woo. That's the kind of guy he is.
Yeah, he does. He's got that little X factor to him, which is cool to see, the little bit of showmanship. And yeah, I mean, I thought it was fun. And then, yes, as you say, with Scotty there, getting a crack out of it as well was great.
He's a show off, and I love it. When you guys take Phil and Tiger out of it, who could show off? Who had things that you went, okay, I don't possess that. Nobody else does either. Who were the show-offs, like turn of the 8, 9, 2010 period?
I mean, the only name that really could come to mind, and I don't know that this is a good thing, was Rory Sabatini. I mean, he could kind of, like with his emotion, not necessarily with his game quite so much, but he had that ability, almost like a toasty, to walk off on Ben Crane and create sort of news on his own that way.
Okay.
Anthony
Sabo, I didn't see that. Who?
Anthony Kim.
Oh, Anthony. That's a good one.
Yeah, that massive belt buckle that he showed up with.
Total hot dog.
Yep, 100%.
And backed it.
Yeah, he could back it up. Freddie Couples had it, but he was we were coming in right after Freddie, but Freddie kind of had it as well.
He had the cool, he always has possessed the coolest vibe. Anthony Kim, I think, is the answer.
And I also I was thinking Justin Thomas possesses that, and we even saw
positively.
We saw it just last week at Valspar when he's walking the putts in. And I thought when he made the putt on 15 and gave it like the JT arm raise, I thought, okay, tournament's over, it's his, he's back in the winner's circle. But maybe it came back to bite him a little bit.
Yes, it did. But nonetheless, I agree with you on that. AK is positively the right answer. All right, let's get to 1 and 2 in the world. What did Rory get out of the week? And was it everything that you would hope that he would have gotten out of the week?
I think it's everything he hoped to get out of the week. You know, I said this to Johnson last night, that he showed up, and this was probably because of the weather Thursday morning as well. He looked a little bit disinterested. He didn't look like he really wanted to be there, but it was a terrible Thursday morning. He grew into the week and then, had to really knuckle down to make the cut, made 3 late birdies.
Yeah.
Just shows that these guys, even the biggest names, don't want to miss the cuts. And then
it also shows that cuts matter matter.
They matter.
There's
They
value,
matter. Yep.
inherent value to that.
Yep. And then the weekend that he played was great. And, I think it was absolutely perfect. He was sort of in contention, but not really. And it gave him a really good sight of where his game's at.
Yeah, he continued to putt the ball well.
Yeah.
He continued to wedge it well, short game. And the fact that he made 8 straight threes, at one point started on the 5th hole on Sunday, like that showed that he was in it and had his game in a good enough place to try to make a run at Minwoo on Sunday. So he never really felt the pressure of being in contention, which probably is a good thing for him to have rested the mind a little bit for going into this week, because it exhausts you being in contention.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Like he had the perfect week. It didn't really take a lot out of him mentally because he was, as I say, in contention, sort of, but not
Sort of.
really,
He was on the
really
periphery.
Yeah.
He had that eagle putt on the inward 9 that you're going, okay, if he makes that, and then he's got the eagle putt on 16, which I'm trying to think, was it Taylor Pendrith who putted before him, and he was low right immediately, and then he overborrowed and he was high left, and it never had a chance. Like if he makes that, who knows? But yeah, he was on the periphery. How about the elbow comment that he gives to Kira Dixon afterwards, which sent alarm bells off everywhere? I've not heard anything about him having any ailment or discomfort in his elbow. Does that raise any flag at all?
Not for me, not really. I mean, when you swing the club at that sort of speed and you've played 72 holes,
Sure.
practice rounds, of course you've never played, so he put a little more time into his preparation, I'm sure. Coming off of the run he's had, a lot of golf, yes, you're going to have little aches and pains here and there, but nothing a little icy hot can't take care of.
Oh, Icy Hot, good drop. I'm sure that will be a sponsor on the Wagyu Filet Show on Monday nights on
done.
Sirius XM.
Well done.
That and the Stretch Lab. All right. I would say one other thing about him is that he goes back to Augusta National afterwards. And in terms of all the results, he couldn't have gotten anything more, I don't think, out of the results leading in. But the results, he leaves that stuff at the door. State of mind, which only he knows his state of mind. Do you think, does your intuition tell you he's in as good a place as he could possibly be going into the Masters tournament?
Yes.
Yes.
100%. 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, without a doubt, he's never won twice before the Masters on the PGA Tour. He's won 2 massive events, Pebble and the Players. I think he's, we talk a lot about how many different ways he's tried it. The fact that he's playing that spinnier golf ball, the fact that his wedge game's under control, the fact that he's putting it as consistent as I've seen him in a long time, I think he is absolutely as well positioned as we've seen in the last 6 or 7 years.
And the fact that he's talking about all these shots that he has in his arsenal now, the fact that he's outwardly talking about it, I've got shots that I didn't have before. I think he's right where he needs to be.
All right, Scheffler, he goes to Augusta National, absent of a win. But let me just point out that because of the injury, he was deprived a start or 2. And last year, when he started what was one of the great seasons we've seen this century, his first win came in his 6th start. He now has 6 starts. So he's not like he's that far behind. His first win last year was the Arnold Palmer Invitational. He won the Players, and then he won the Masters, so he won 3 of 4, and then he goes off, and he has one of the most hellacious years we've seen. Give me an assessment of Scheffler going to Augusta.
I think the knock on him that I had on his few starts on the West Coast there, Pebble, Phoenix, and Genesis, was the fact that he was hitting too many hard pulls with the iron play, with the driver. It seemed that he kind of figured that out slowly going through Florida. And then what I saw from him last week, the putter got a little bit hotter. The short game stayed the chip shot on 18 was incredible.
He's so efficient.
And I feel like, and you said this last night, I'll let you take it, but his iron play, what did you notice about his iron play last week that you said last night?
I was fortunate enough to walk with him for an entire round. I've never seen anybody hit the ball that often to pin high. It was unbelievable, be it with a 4-iron or a wedge. Everything was in there pin high, which shows that you're in great control.
The putter, it was 1 putt percentage, 3 putt avoidance was not very good statistically compared even to last year, which was not a great year. That got better obviously this week. The overall putting numbers are markedly improved as far as his strokes gained against the field. So you feel like he's taking a game that should make him, if not 1A, 1B,
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt.
The only thing for me with Scotty at the Masters, like, he doesn't get overwhelmed with pressure like Rory's going to have to deal with.
Correct.
He's so cool and calm. Yeah. It's just that it's the Masters, and there are so many incredible players that have a chance to win that golf tournament. But Scotty's not going to beat himself. I can guarantee you that.
Okay, who is somebody who maybe over the last 2-3 weeks, maybe not even a top 5 or a top 10, but you're seeing just some indication that maybe next week could be a very good week? Is there somebody that sticks out?
I mean, I've got 2. I'll just mention one so he has some room there. But Wyndham Clark finally showed me something this week. And you said it last night, though, the corridors at the golf course there at Memorial Park are so wide that Wyndham was hitting these massive slices into the fairways. Now, Augusta National doesn't allow him to do that on a lot of holes, but at least there's signs of life. And we're not talking about him like we're talking about Max Homa right now. No. We're talking about Wyndham, where he's had plenty of good finishes. He's had plenty of good rounds, and I think he's definitely on the upward trend.
I think the other one you probably had was Justin Thomas.
Yep.
Justin Thomas has played really well the start of this season. I know he didn't get the job done there at Innisbrook, but he's someone that you're really going to have to keep a close eye on.
Yeah, I think everybody's consensus about what happened, even though he was 3 up, that it's not such devastation, that there is clearly a build here. He is doing things that are reflective of the way he used to be. But it's still May of 22, that last win. And his record at Augusta National is modest relative to who he is. All right, we come back. More to do with Johnson and Brendon. It's Wagner Filet on a Tuesday here on 5 Clubs. Back with them right after this. All right, we are back in here with Johnson and Brendon. Of course, their show Monday nights on SiriusXM. Both of them will be a big part of Masters Radio next week. Looking forward to be down there with you guys as well. Let's get to a few other things before we wrap it up here. Plus, we've got a Masters preview with these two. Taylor Zars will be joining us. That will be available to you before the end of this week to get you set up for the Masters tournament. It's now April. Give me somebody who's been a disappointment so far in 2025.
Sam Burns, for me, has been a massive disappointment. I kind of expected big things out of Sam Burns this year. I think one of my bold takes was that Sam Burns would win a major. He is way off that right now. He really hasn't played any good golf yet.
Yeah, Sam is not good, and I appreciate you giving me the other one, Max Homa. I mean,
it's too bad.
He's 78th in the world. I mean, just a year ago, he was contending at the Masters, and he has fallen off the planet. He's only had 1 top 10 since then, and that was the Wells Fargo Championship. He's only made 2 cuts this year, and they were both in signature events. And he's coming off 4 straight missed cuts. Like, there's really no hope anywhere in sight, at least when we talk about a guy like Victor Hovland. Like, he can rattle off a win, not feeling like he's got his best stuff, but Max Homa is very concerning.
The self-talk between Max Homa and Victor Hovland is very, very similar. It's not good at the moment. Somehow Hovland seems to be getting it done, and Max is not.
And Max has left the social media stage, which is too bad, but I totally get it. If you think about where he was, the last major of 2023 was his first top 10 in a major. He then parlays that into being the man of the match, along with Patrick Cantlay, in a losing effort on the road for the United States in his baptism in that cauldron. And you're going, oh my.
Yeah.
And then he turns on to the second night at Augusta National with a chance to win the Masters. And like you said, 1 top 10 after that, and look, he's been here before, not with the profile that he has now, but he was down and out in Portland on the Korn Ferry Tour and pulled up his bootstraps, and I hope he can do it again because the talent is there, but form can be fickle. Give me a nice, pleasant surprise for you so far.
Sepp Straka. Sepp Straka's been awesome. I mean, he's
just the win. He's hanging around every week.
Yeah, he's taken that confidence that he gained from playing well at that Ryder Cup, and I mean, he's just parlayed that into a great start to the season.
He's second in the FedEx Cup currently. I mean, I'd be remiss not to talk about J.J. Spawn. He's had the second at the Players, T2 Cognizant, had Sony in the bag, finished T3. J.J. Spawn's moved up to 28th in the world. leading into the players, some would say it was quietly, but after the players, now he's on everybody's radar. But J.J. Spawn, what a season he's had, because kind of came out of nowhere from last year. And in a season that top 100 keeps their card, to have this sort of season and pretty much be guaranteed the signature events next year after the way he's played, it's going to be massive going forward.
I'll give you another one, Michael Kim.
Excellent.
I mean, this guy was nowhere for a while now, played himself into Augusta. You know, he snuck in there at that 50th spot. It's been really impressive what we've seen from Michael Kim.
One thing more on Sepp Straka. When did you give up the follicle fight? When did you just say, it's over, I can't win this battle, and I'm just going to take it all the way down? I'm just curious.
I hate how much enjoyment he's getting out of that.
Because he's got a full head of lettuce.
He's got a little bit of bald spot.
Well, when he stops dyeing that mustache. I was young, Greg.
Really?
Yeah, 29.
29. You said it's over.
It's over, yeah.
In college, he put too much cheap gel in there. It was called LA Looks, and he'd get in front of the mirror and he'd push it down and put it back up, and I think it just rotted. It rotted.
Burning follicles.
Oh my, that's a tragic story. Sepp Straka, I'm just going to focus on my golf, and it's over. And it's been a great year. Reminder, tomorrow, our first road show. We're headed to Florida. I will be at the James Hardy, which is a new Champions Tour event with a number of Pro Football Hall of Famers. I have only one goal. Lawrence Taylor must be on this program tomorrow. We will have a 2-hour show, 8 to 10. And you guys, we are going to do our Masters preview. Like I said, that will be available for everybody on our YouTube channel before the end of this week, which will include Taylor Zarzour. Looking forward to being with you guys at Augusta.
Same here, Gary.
Okay.
Always, Gary. Thank you.
All right. For all of us here on 5 Clubs, have a great Tuesday. We will see you tomorrow from Boca.